Your ears do not deceive you. You have just entered the Cryptid Creator Corner brought to you by your friends at Comic Book Yeti. So without further ado, let's get on to the interview.
All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Comic Book Yeti. I am here with Chad Perkins, a really awesome creator and writer, to talk about his phenomenal series, Blu Lullaby. How are you, Chad?
Doing good. How are you today?
Good. Well, I'm just glad we actually were able to make time and talk about this, because when I got the copies of the series to read, I definitely was like, this is something that needs to be talked about.
Well, thank you. The fact that you called it phenomenal, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We got to start on the right foot. Like we can't start off low. You might as well go as high as possible, so
Right, exactly. You might as well not say, Chad, your book is terrible. What, man? What's wrong? You want to call it phenomenal, amazing, dress it up.
Exactly. Dress it up for the party.
Exactly.
And it should be a party because Blu Lullaby is your first comic that you've had published. So huge congratulations on that. How does it feel to have that big thing?
Truthfully, it feels kind of surreal.
Yeah.
I never expected. I've spent most of my life reading comics and interviewing people, because I used to do another podcast as well before I started my other one. And I just got up one day and I was like, you know what? I'm going to write a fucking comic book. Oh, can I swear, by the way?
I am not too sure about that. So swear away. And if they have any issues with it, I'm sure they can censor or cut things. So
perfect. Well, then I decided to write a fucking comic. So it feels great, especially Marcosia scooped it up.
Yeah.
I know I can't go into too many details, but Blu was originally with Action Lab. You can go look at all that. That's not a secret or anything. And then it got scooped up by Marcosia. So this is my first official publishing. And the fact that they've been really great to me, it's really great. It's awesome. And I get to meet cool people like you. So
yeah. Oh, see, now you're throwing the compliments my way. See, I can throw the compliments. I don't know how to take them, because that's not supposed to be my job as an interviewer.
But well then, never mind. You're mean.
Rejected. It's fine. No, but Marcosia, they for those of you watching that don't know, they are a publisher from the UK, and they've been really scooping up some really great series and working with a lot of phenomenal creators. So to add you into that mix is a really great thing, not only for me to see as a fan and all that, but just it's got to be a great thing on their part.
I mean, absolutely. When I looked through their catalog before I even submitted with them, they don't have a lot of horror books, but they do have a lot of crime books, so that was really nice. But originally, I fell in love with Chrono Cat by Stu Perrin. I actually did his book on my show as well, and I decided to shoot my shot in there, and they scooped it up, so it was nice. But they've been around since 2005, and they're now one of the leading independent publishers in the UK. So
yeah, that's absolutely huge. I mean, that's gotta be a great honor. And I like that you already mentioned right off the bat that Blu Lullaby is a horror book. Horror, I would argue, is the most popular genre in comics right now, if not maybe the second till, the superhero books, of course, but horror is the most popular genre in comic books right now. And it's funny because Blu Lullaby, if you just hear that title and see nothing, it sounds like a kid's story, but this is not a kid's story.
Go on.
Oh, I was just gonna ask, what is it about? But you started going, so I was like, oh, you got it.
Yeah, no. So you could do it as a bedtime story or a child story if you want. I won't judge you. You probably shouldn't, but you could. So Blu Lullaby follows the story of Winter and Blue. They're agents of a supernatural organization known as Safety Blanket. And yeah, that is a reference to the snowflake stuff that was going on. So yes. And after they saved a child from an abusive father, Winter and Blue are given their next twisted case to solve a mystery of child hearing, and the answer just lies at a school. Right.
Of course, when it's kids, it goes back to school. Like it gives me like season 2, 3 Buffy vibes. Like, even though this is not a Buffy story in any way, and it's a very different plot. Yeah, it all goes back to a school. Sunnydale High,
exactly.
and the Hellmouth about to collapse. That's kind of what's happening here in this story. It's all that.
Yeah, and Buffy the movie when she was in school was also a comedy. So
yes. Yeah, that one was. And you know what? I'm a huge Buffy fan, but I've never actually watched the original film because I'm just not sure I'm drunk enough to handle it. So I'm gonna have to make time to do that.
Here's the thing though, if you go into it drunk, you just get more sober watching it.
Oh no. Oh no.
Actually, my mom saw it and I actually haven't seen it since I was little, so I couldn't even tell you what it's about. I mean, we know what it's about, but I couldn't tell you anything about the movie. So
yeah. Well, and one thing that I really like about this series is that, obviously it's horror, but because it's like a missing kids case and such, there's a little bit of the detective genre thrown in there as well.
Yes.
How did you go about balancing out the tropes of each of these genres while putting your own twist on them?
So first I wanted to say that when it comes to horror and detective genres, I do agree that they are, well, I believe horror is one of the most popular, and I also agree that detective is one of the most popular. Mm-hmm. And I only think that way because they're like a big sandbox. You can pretty much do anything you want with them, and it's always going to be at least interesting. Like, what was that one that wow, I can't even remember his freaking name. Steve Niles just released. Days of Night. It's a werewolf cop one where he's just going around killing people. It's great.
Oh yeah, what more could you want?
What?
I was gonna say, what more could you want with that kind of story?
Nothing. I mean, you're like, or Grizzly Shark. The name sells itself. So
it's so good.
Ryan Otley, you beautiful man. But so one of the things that helped me kind of balance the two genres is one of my best friends, Kit Jaspering, who does a comic called False Start, gave me some really good advice. When it comes to creating comic books, just make sure you set some rules and make sure you always have your characters doing something that matters. So I tried to do just that with both genres. And what I mean by that is when you watch Winter, she's always investigating. She's always talking about the case. She's always focused like how a detective is. So that kind of gave you the detective genre. She's not running off to a diner and going, oh yeah, the one that got away. She's not doing that. She's wanting to be laser focused on this case. And when it comes to the horror side of it, I made Blue just do terrifying and weird things. But I also wanted to focus on him a lot more too, like in issue 2, where he kind of gets his big reveal that he's not dumb. So that was one of the other things that I did. Now, when it comes to twisting them, I kind of just went with whatever uncomfortable and unnerving scenarios I could think of.
That's a way to do
it. Right. So I went with children and crimes and horror movies. So yeah.
You picked it all. You picked the top subjects of every one and just said, put them together.
I sure did. And I will talk about a little bit on what horror I pulled from too. So
yeah, I was going to say, what horror did you pull from? We're already there. So
yeah. So one of the things when it came to designing it and everything is I pulled from Five Nights at Freddy's, and I also pulled out, at least when it came to designing Blue and the horror elements, I made Blue more of, he pops out of nowhere. He has a dislocated jaw. He's terrifying. He's creepy to look at. So I pulled a lot from Five Nights at Freddy's. I also pulled Robbie Rabbit from Silent Hill as well.
That's
so
great.
Those were two ones. And of course, I'll get into some of the other stuff that I pulled from too. But a lot of monster movies and like Monsters Incorporated, Men in Black, I pulled from, especially with the relationship with the children in Blue. Definitely Monsters Incorporated. And of course, I mean, Men in Black isn't really a horror movie, but it's right. You have that crime organization that is aliens, but instead it's replaced with monsters. So
and we love that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It works perfectly well. You've already talked about Blue so much.
Yes.
So obviously, if people haven't heard of this, Blue is not technically the main character, I don't think, unless maybe you as the creator would argue that there's two main characters. But Blue is incredibly central to the story, main character or otherwise. So who is Blue, and how did you design Blue?
Yeah. So, okay. So there's actually two parts to this. One, I wanted to write, and you actually mentioned this too, in your questions you sent me, was I wanted to do the trope, the animal sidekick. So you were 100% right on that. When it came to designing Blue, I didn't have really a form with him when I first started writing him. Instead, at first I had in my head like an elephant or a pig-like creature, just something that could still be really terrifying, but at the same time, though, really gentle. But when you put anything on a horror on an elephant and a pig, it all just turned out really creepy and weird. So Andrea actually was the one, my artist, Andrea Montano. She was the one who kind of took what I was thinking, which was, instead of doing an elephant or a pig-like creature, I wanted to do a Five Nights at Freddy's Silent Hill Robbie Rabbit style character where it's a bipedal rabbit with like an axe or just something, and it pops out to terrify children. Well, Andrea said that was stupid. And she's like, okay, so first off, I'm gonna tell you right now, making Blue a humanoid, weird Five Nights at Freddy's type character is just gonna scare the piss off of children regardless. So you're not gonna win you're not gonna win any points in any department on that. Right. So she came up with the idea of, I came up with the idea of making it a rabbit after the Five Nights at Freddy's and also Robbie Rabbit. But she came up with the idea of an adorably ugly creature. So one of the things I picked from was a Chinese crested terrier or a Sphinx-like cat. So when you look at those animals, you're like, oh my God, they're so ugly, but you really want to pet it and play with it. So then Andrea said, you can't make it stand on two legs. So she dropped it back onto four legs and made it more of a rat or more of like a rabbit. And then I incorporated the rat-like structure because as you can see, his tail and like his teeth and everything and almost his head shape is kind of like a rat. I'm sorry, not his head, his back legs are like a rat. And that came into play of the rat rabbit type scenario because children love bunnies, but children sometimes love rats, but they also can be afraid of them. We also incorporated a snake with that too. You can actually see that in a couple of the designs in the first issue, but that slowly deteriorates after a while because he originally, and I actually might have some of the old designs, he actually had a snake tongue and his eyes were more of a snake's, like the little slits. But Andrea had a lot more designs say into him because my ideas were stupid in the beginning. So we also had a hunchback originally too. That's how she drew him. And then I told her she was stupid. No, Andrea is wonderful. Like we have a very, very, very brash speaking tone with each other, and it's a lot of fun. She's a beautiful person when it comes to drawing.
Yeah, so. I was gonna say it sounds like it just sounds like kind of how siblings, like how we'll tease here, because I have 4 siblings, and that's exactly how we'll talk to each other if like we're just like, you're stupid, go away. But we don't actually think that in reality. We just disagree with what they're saying.
Yep. Your face is ugly. I didn't mean that. You're actually a very beautiful person, my brother. I love you. But just for the sake of playing it for the camera, you're stupid and you're ugly.
Yep, that's it.
But yeah, so she actually had a lot of fun designing the characters. She actually designed Winter's outfit as well.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that too. But Andrea also, but yeah, so that's how he came into designing. So yeah.
That's awesome. And, again, you've already talked so much about Andrea and how she's so great at drawing and stuff like that. I can't ask her this directly because she's not here. But one of the things I thought was so interesting, specific with her art, was that she could draw characters and make them look so innocent and very good at capturing those emotions and just that kind of purity, for lack of a better word. I feel kind of gross saying it, but still the only word I can really think of. But she also draws some of those gruesome scenes. Like part of the reason I don't recommend as a children's story is because it is brutal with the violence at times. Like it is absolutely, that's where the horror elements come in.
Yep.
So how did you find her? And is that kind of what you were looking for, with somebody that could do both?
So I actually found her by carrier pigeon, so that was a weird.
Yeah.
No. So it's kind of it's kind of an interesting story. She kind of showed up accidentally, in a sense. So Sean Manning, he was a guy I was interviewing for my previous podcast, Comics Are Cool, and he did Beth the Red King through Lucha Comics, but he went with a totally different person. And I was like, oh, cool. So are they like a new publisher? And he's like, yeah, but they also help people write comic books and get them started. And I was like, cool, I'll reach out. Well, I did. And I spoke with Rodolfo and I pitched him my idea. I had the first script already laid out. And he was one of the ones that said, hey, I have somebody here for you. Can you take a look at her? And she actually just sent me, like, she read the script and she sent me, before I even said, yes, you're on board. She actually sent me the first 5 pages.
Wow.
Completely done. Yeah. And that's kind of like that's when I was just like, oh, I actually found a great artist here. And she's actually on my other book too, that we're currently working on with her husband who does the backgrounds. So
awesome.
So I get both the husband and wife. And I will tell you right now, if you want to see a guy draw huge boobs, go look at Tim Silvero. So
I was gonna say, I don't think it's hard to find those, but maybe he just does them extra better. So I'll have to go look them up, because there's a specific way to draw that and draw it well. Just because everybody thinks they can do it doesn't mean they can.
Yes. And one of the things that I liked about Andrea's style, especially when it came to Blue or even Winter doing these kind of terrifying things, especially in the later chapters with Winter, is she does it in a very over dramatic way, but not to the point where it's like, oh, this is just tacky. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So especially when Blue is ripping off the heads of people, he just has that silhouette, and then the body's just dripping blood, and you already have that visual aspect. You don't need it completely drawn out for you. And I thought her doing that was a lot of fun. So
yeah, it was, and it worked very well, I can say, as a reader. So full props to her for being able to do that.
Yes, absolutely. Because she also too had a lot of free range with setting stuff up as well. So her designing like the recluse character, which is just there. Unfortunately, he's just your guy that pushes along the plot. But I do have more things with him later. But that's how he was set up. Again, it's very tropey book. But originally he was supposed to be more spider-like. Hence he's a recluse. He's also brown. But anyway, that's still on the nose. But you get the idea.
Yeah.
Actually, now that I say that out loud, I really didn't think about that. But anyway, so I didn't think about that. So that's very unintentional. But he works as a character. But he was supposed to be more spider-like. The chair he was sitting in was actually supposed to be his legs. And he's actually like sitting on his legs, like they're balancing him. But she was the one who made him more human, because it blurred that line between the horror element of the supernatural and also the human nature of everything. So
yeah, and that's actually really cool to hear. But I will say I am absolutely terrified of giant spiders, and they're always in horror. So I'm glad that did not happen design wise, because I would look at that page and go, yeet.
Oh, trust me, I'm right there with you. I hate spiders. I know they're good for the environment, but I saw that video that's going viral right now of that girl handling that giant bird-eating spider, puts it on her back, hugs it, and everything.
Oh God, no.
Like, look. I'm pretty sure it's very friendly. Apparently they are very harmless, but they have way too many legs.
Nope. That is absolutely too much. Like, I'm having a mini panic attack right now. That is, but it does make sense. I can see where she made that decision in terms of let's blur that line more. 'Cause I would argue this series really does blur a lot of the lines. And one of those lines is, we talked about the innocent people she draws versus the gore she draws, but even just as a theme in the story, everything really isn't black and white. Was this a theme that you really wanted to hone in on?
No, not at
Really?
all. So actually, yeah. Um, s- so one of the things that happened during the story is I wanted it to be very black and white. Bad people, there are bad people, there are good people. Actually,
Mhm.
Winter was originally supposed to be a gritty two shoes preppy character.
Okay.
Then rather the more brutal, more cold-hearted nature that you see now. Her entire role was just to be using Blue as more of a scare tactic for dads and other characters. But then I pulled from the Punisher. And I think what ended up happening is I started thinking is, okay, well, this dad here is abusing this child. These characters are doing all these awful things. Do they deserve to live? Do they deserve to live because they're people like us, because they're breathing? Am I a good person for letting them go free? So it just became this more of this, not argument with myself, but making the decision of, well, no, they need to die type deal. And I think that
Yeah.
played better with Blue because I didn't want to make Winter this preachy character of, no, don't kill him. No, it's
Yeah.
just Winter just goes, hey, clean up your mess, and then go meet me there,
Yeah.
type deal. And of course, she also sees reason as well, but I also want to be able to push her with her own traumas, and you see that later on in the story.
Yeah.
So the why she's like that. So
Yeah, and I really liked that the way you handled that with, including the fact that it's an ethical and moral dilemma. It's not like she initially wants to be a terrible person, but also like there's good reason why she could make this huge decision that many others would be like, no, don't do it. It's gonna change who you are. And overall, Winter is so well written, and honestly, as a woman myself, she's pretty relatable, because
yes.
especially that trauma she has, it built up a lot of anger, it seemed like, over the years. That's how I interpreted it.
Yep.
So I really like to see that. Were there any certain characters or stories in particular that inspired that? I know you talked about the ethical switch with the Punisher.
Yes. Yep. So that was definitely an inspiration for me, even though Rodolph and I, when I first pitched the idea and I had the script, I told him I didn't want to have a Punisher Wolverine story. And that completely went out the window. The Punisher aspect did sit in there because I love that character a lot.
Yeah.
You have a lot of Nightcrawler stuff.
Yeah.
I have a lot of
do.
Punisher stuff. There's actually one Punisher skull in every single one of my rooms.
That's actually really cool.
Yeah. So my wife is just like, oh God, it's even going into the kitchen now. I'm like, yes, yes, it is. So you are correct that Buffy was one of the templates that I had to pull from. And when I say that, unfortunately, but I also say that because she's a good character. She's your kind-hearted, caring person, but she will kick your ass all the way into tomorrow when she needs to. So I ended up saying, yeah, damn it, I gotta use Buffy, don't I? All right, fine.
Yeah, I know it's hard for some creators because like everybody's like, oh look, this is inspired by Buffy. Oh, this is like Buffy, and everybody gets everybody's like, I'm tired of hearing it, but it's like kind of like seeing Superman and Batman everywhere. Like there's a reason like these characters are so often inspiring things or seen everywhere because they're that phenomenal characters that can be used in so many different ways.
Yes, exactly. Now, the other two, though, that I don't think people really knew. I mean, the other character was obviously Frank Castle because he will pull that trigger with that extra step that he needs to do. The other character, and are you a Supernatural fan?
I know of it. I've never watched the whole series.
Damn it. All right. So,
but who is it? Because somebody here watching.
Sure, of course. And if they are, Jodie Mills from Supernatural. She's a cop that Sam and Dean meet, and what she does is she's the overprotective mother of these boys. She's a cop. She first starts out not knowing anything about the supernatural world, and she's dragged into these by these two. And her thing isn't turn tail and run. It's, oh shit, these boys are in over their head. They don't have a family. I'm going to protect them. And I really liked that. I liked that mentality that Jodie's character was, how she was written. Unfortunately, that show fell apart after season 8, but I digress. You can all fight me on that. But I really enjoyed her. So I ended up watching like all of her episodes, especially the one where she adopts the vampires, because that was great because she didn't she wasn't afraid of them. She just wanted to take care of these girls who unfortunately have vampirism, or awesome, depending on how you look at it. Blue's actually designed, when it came to inspiration, besides Five Nights at Freddy's and Robbie the Rabbit, he's actually based on child show hosts and childish characters. Basically, like, Blue from Blue's Clues, like that whole entire.
Absolutely.
Of course you do. Yeah, I based it around the gentle nature of kids shows, and specifically Blue's Clues, Dora the Explorer, and any of those where he talks in a very subtle like nature. And that's one of the things I really enjoyed about doing this. Let me bring up my notes because it's really hard to explain. So when Andrea originally showed me the new design of Blue, I go, oh shit, he has to have a different speaking style. He can't just talk in this like demonic aggressive voice like most do. Because he's so ugly cute, I had to incorporate that. So I watched Blue's Clues and a couple of other shows like Dora and was it not Peppa Pig? I hate that show, or Caillou. But just those other shows that were on Nick Jr. that I grew up with as a kid. And I wanted him to speak into, especially when it came to the red on yellow type text. That was Andrea's decision, because what it is that red is more aggressive and yellow is a little bit more softer with people and bright and colorful and happy. Well, if you notice, he actually speaks in a very comforting tone with kids. So he'll just be like, no, you're okay. I'm here to help. I'm safe. He'll use simple words for them. And then when it's the adults, I try to compare him to like Sully from Monsters Incorporated, where he'll get up in your face aggressive for Boo. But then for like between Randall and Waternoose or any of them, spoilers if you haven't seen Monsters Inc., but those are the villains. But when he's talking with Boo, he's very subtle and gentle with everything.
Yeah.
He's actually has a broken English accent because he's also a foreigner. Unlike Recluse, where he speaks in a more of a natural tone. One, because it's a black word bubble. It's him speaking in demon, so it's more, it's nicer. But with Blue, he's usually always speaking in his accent, so it's coming off as broken and that he's a foreigner, but he's also just speaking in a simplified manner. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, and when you brought up like Blue's Clues and Dora and stuff, so I actually was a teacher for a while and I worked with all grades. I worked at elementary, and that makes complete sense looking back and thinking about how Blue speaks and that juxtaposition you're trying to create between he's very soft and calm with the kids, and then he can be soft and calm with adults, but he's not afraid to get in your face and put you in your place if necessary. Also reminds me of Gordon Ramsay. Like he'll chew out adults in the kitchen, but the second there's a kid, he's like, "It's okay, you're gonna get this," and everybody's like, "What?"
Oh, you sweet angel. That's actually a good comparison. I didn't even think about that, because it's like the salt in the cookies. I put too much salt in them, and all he says is, "You know what? You tried." And that's what matters. You did it.
And if it was an adult, he would have cussed him out so much for that one.
Oh God, yeah, absolutely. He would destroy you. But yeah, no, like Blue definitely, he speaks in just this very compassionate style, but very simple. Winter, when it comes to talking with kids, though, she's also a lot like that too. The one thing that was the tricky part was to not make them that similar when speaking, but it kind of ended up being, it had to happen because of the two elements that they were playing with was adult and kids. So she had to do it too, even though she speaks more technical to the kids as well.
And I would still say, like, as a reader, I still could tell the difference, if that makes any sense for you. Like, I could still tell how Blue talks and how they talk to kids, versus how he talks to adults versus how Winter talks. Because Winter, even though you're right, she does get a little bit nicer to the kids. She's actually, or at least maybe I'm reading into it wrong, but me as a reader, I thought she was more consistently throughout. I mean, she'll definitely be more harsh with the adults, but she could still be pretty soft with adults too, until you broke that boundary and she said, "All right, that's it."
That's actually a good take about that. I didn't actually think about that at all. But
Well,
no,
I know things.
good. No, I'm glad that you're able to see things that I didn't either. So that's awesome. I'm glad it stuck with you.
Yeah, well, like I said, I called it phenomenal for a reason. So it's actually worth talking about and dissecting this much, because this, you and I, before we start filming this interview, talked about how, like, there's some things that's like, this is we wrote that the walls are blue and that just means they're blue. There's nothing else to it. But there's a lot of stuff to this book and this series.
Yes, absolutely. And yes, it is at first glance, it is written as a simple point A to point B detective story. But when you find the layers of everything has a reason to it. Even stuff that I didn't think about, like you pointed out. So it's, like my book did, shockingly, it came with a lot of thought. Now that we're talking about this, I'm like, oh, I actually put a lot more thought into this book. So
hey, well, it means that you care about your work, even if you don't always know how much care you're putting into it. So it works out very well. I want to bring up another part of the book, the Safety Blanket Organization. So Winter, her detective stuff is with the Safety Blanket Organization. It seems to actually set up a way for this to become an actual, like, universe. Like, this could actually become a thing. Could we ever see other agents and creatures or people working for Safety Blanket and things like that?
Oh, hell yeah, 100%. So if this book does well with Marcosia, I do have 2 more story arcs that I'm doing the outline for the second arc, and I have, like, the cliff notes of the third arc ready, or just some stuff jotted down. Unfortunately, I don't think I can do the second story arc, but I'm probably going to end up doing it anyway. And as for the as for the characters, though, absolutely, you're gonna see more of them. All of the characters that I have laid out, all of them are weird. They're interesting. They're goofy. One of the ones that I have, and she might be a throwaway character. I'm not 100% sure, but she's an old grandma with a shotgun, and her partner is her partner is an entire forest.
Oh,
yeah, and I don't know how to incorporate her, but I really like the idea. And she's considered like the first, so I have an idea about that as well, that I'm playing around with, but I don't know where to put her, but I still want to use her, or I'll scrap her and put her in another series because she's kind of fun.
I was gonna say, I would read a series just with her starring at that point in the forest, because that sounds hysterical.
Yeah, well, that was the whole point, is that when you see her, she's just this little grandma in a shack, and then she's like, what's that screaming? And then you turn around and you're like, oh my god, it's eating everything. oh it's not just one tentacle, it's the entire forest.
Oh.
Yeah. But no, yes, I do have a couple of story arcs that I want to work on and do if this comic does do very well. And honestly, though, I'll probably end up going back to it anyway, because I still love thinking about it and I like developing the characters. My third book actually ties into Blu Lullaby. It doesn't tie into the way that people would think it is, but it's going to be a lot of fun, because it's just like, it's one joke, and if people who read it will understand it. So
yeah, I was gonna say, so what other what else are you working on? Because you've briefly mentioned a couple other issues or books that you have going on and stuff. So of course only what you can talk about.
Sure.
But what else you got going on? Because I'm sure everybody watching this is not only gonna want to pick up Blu Lullaby, but want to follow you in the chaos.
Oh, well, thank you. I appreciate you want to. If you want to talk, if you want to hear somebody ramble like a lunatic and create weird stories, talk to me. But no, so my next book that I just announced in September, and I'm still trying to get the wheels turning on it, is Lucha Comics picked up, who I used with Andrea. They picked up my next comic, Lyrical. And I told myself that I was not going to do a superhero book. And then I turned around and I did a superhero book.
Oops.
Because it follows the story, and there are two books that are less that I have ran into, and that's okay. One is called Shuffle, and the other one is called Treble. And that's okay. They're great people. One's a kid's book and one about rap music. My book is about a hero who does not want to be a hero. Instead, he's only being a superhero because it pays bills. And that's why he wants to do it. His ability is any song that is played, he gains a different power. And when it ends, that power disappears. And then I found Shuffle about 3 days later, and Chuck Pino is working on it. And I'm like, Chuck, you know. No, it was a total coincidence and everything. So that was all just like making fun of it. It's actually a good book too. It's really cute. It's a kid's book. Mine's not.
But definitely not.
No, I try not to do kids books at all. I try to make everything hard R as possible. But he ends up finding a villain that is way too strong for him, and now he actually has to be a hero instead of just doing little stuff. Like one of the characters I have is a character who balances on one foot and he can't be knocked down. And and he just defeats him because he's easy to defeat. Like he's just a dumb villain.
That makes me think of Monty Python and the Holy Grail with the Black Knight. Just like it's just a flesh wound, cuts off legs, cuts off arms.
Yes. That was a really fun character to design. And Lyrical actually has multiple throwaway characters, so that was a lot of fun that I got to use those.
Awesome.
Like diabetes. It's a guy who dresses as a bee and he has diabetes.
This is fantastic. Like honestly, you could make a whole universe with this stuff.
I could. And then there's a third book I'm working on. I have an artist attached to it and I can't announce it just yet. Because her and I gotta talk about but we gotta do business behind the scenes. We have to do paperwork, and I hate doing that. But she's really great. She's just as sassy as Andrea. She also swears more often than Andrea. And if anybody's listening, you probably know who I'm talking about because she's well known in the independent industry. So I'm very excited to be working with her on my next book.
Yes.
So that's what I have in the pipeline, but I'm also working on a website for my podcast, but we're working on something a little bit bigger. And I think people are going to like it. And I hope so. And I hope we do a good job with it. Because if we don't, then I'm going to be really sad.
It's okay that you can just redo it. You know, it happens. Nothing's forever on the internet, right? It's fine.
Sure. Yeah. Nothing disappears on the internet at all.
It's completely fine. Well, that's really exciting. I am actually really excited to see all those things in particular. So with all that said, where can people find you and updates on your work so that they can actually make sure they find this stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm really bad at Twitter, but you can find me at Casual Nerd Chad. And I will post different updates. I'll also post stupid thoughts as well. And please yell at me about them. John Westhoff, I'm talking about you. No, I love them. One of the things I love about this community is that we all just like dicking around with each other.
Right.
So I enjoy this community a lot. But you can find that. You can find us there. You can also find me at Shots with Comics, which is my podcast. Am I allowed to do that? Is that going to be?
Oh, no. Promote yourself all you want. This is
yay. Okay. So, yay. Thank you. So you can follow me on that, but you can also follow my dog Bo on TikTok, which is comics, where all he does is sits and chews a bone, and I post a book recommendation for you.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's just a stupid thing that I started, but it's really just an excuse for me to spend like a half hour playing with my dog.
Right. Well, it's a worthy excuse. Absolutely. You should play with your dog. So if it takes filming it, that's fine.
Yeah. So right down, he's also sleeping down by my feet too.
Oh, yeah, that's adorable.
He's a little terrier. I love him. But I also do a podcast with Kit Jaspering, who does False Start. We could do Shots with Comics every Sunday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Twitch. And then the episodes, if you miss them, they go up on YouTube that Tuesday. Right now, we took a break this week just due to some personal reasons. But we do that. And then, like I said, we have another project that we're working on together too. I just got to kick him and the other guy and the other girl that we're working on it with in the butt.
Hey, sometimes it takes a good ass kicking to get moving. So,
yeah,
it's okay.
Yes, of course. So, but yeah, no, so those are the ones that you can definitely follow me on right now. I do have Instagram, but I don't post there that often. But as for checking out this book, I should probably mention that. On right now, pre-orders just dropped on the 16th, so yesterday on Comixology. Eventually, it'll be up on Drive-Thru Comics, Global Comics, and all the digital platforms. So then it drops on the 22nd digitally, and then it'll drop off. It'll be every 2 days. So the second issue drops on the 24th, and then the last 2 drop on the end of March, and then it'll get a print run. Hopefully, they gave me they haven't given me an actual date on it, but they said it was soon. So stay tuned for the print run where you can order it from Barnes and Nobles. You can get it in comic book shops and anything where books are sold. So yeah.
Nice. That's perfect. Yeah. So definitely check it out on Comixology if you guys have not already. Blu Lullaby, put those pre-orders, and 22nd through the 28th, it sounds like by what you said, each issue will release and you can read it. And then I'm such a trade person too, so I'll be looking forward to getting it at Barnes and Noble, wherever, Amazon, whatever, when it gets out in trade. And it just stinks too, because a lot of the printing stuff it's just delays because of sourcing, and it hits the independent creators the hardest, I imagine. So
yes, and that's like a whole other monster that we can talk about. It's crazy right now with the paper shortage. A lot of companies, like the bigger companies, are getting put first before smaller companies. Like it's a mess.
Yeah, so. It's a mess, but at least we do have digital, so it's some form, even if it's not the same form so many of us do prefer. It's still something. So
yes, and I'm like you, is I prefer, and I think that happens with a lot of people in the comic book world, is casual readers will more be digital.
Yeah,
but people who are more
you're fine.
in the industry are just getting more and more into comics. They kind of realize that you support your artists and your writers more when you buy the trade rather than the digital.
Yep.
And I also think too, they look nicer on a shelf. So.
They do. And I find that when I read, I absorb it better looking at an actual book than looking at a digital screen. Like I can read better that way. It's also just better on the eyes because we're already looking at screens all day and watching TV. So I'll do it anytime I can. And especially just to give you guys the money, because God knows, like we want you guys to continue creating, because I love the bigger publishers too and their stories, but like we comics are not the same without the smaller groups and the smaller books and stuff. So
100%. One of the things with us is independent creators can just throw stuff at the wall and they can just write whatever they want. They can create the art that they want. Anything can be a comic book if you make it into one. Like
that's exactly
that one guy, the Strange Planet guy. Like, there you go. Like he made his entire career off of literal representations of what people do. Like the sky's the limit in the independent industry. I know everybody's like, yeah, Marvel and DC, but we got some weird shit down here.
It's true. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Cause again, that's what really keeps, I think the fun in this form, this visual form of creativity, and what makes it so different than movies or TV or even a novel. You can't get that stuff in a novel or even in a film. It won't be the same as in the comic book.
That is correct. Along with that too. No, you're spot on. Like when you watch these TVs and movies, they have these formulas and they don't think outside the box, but then you got Doom Patrol. So I guess that
there you go.
is thrown out the window.
Yeah.
Which dang it, that is the underrated show that needs to be promoted more.
It's so good. And I mean, I will say with that show, I've been very pleased with how, even though it is underrated, it's a very good show, and it's still like, it hasn't gone canceled. They are still recognizing that it's good. So I'm like, you know what? That's fine. Like, as long as it keeps getting made and all that cool stuff. Perfect.
And as for independent stuff, especially what that needs to be turned into movies or just anything, Monster Matador by Stephen Prince. It's just a matador fighting kaiju, and that's it.
Who doesn't want that? That's a thing now. That's like, a huge market.
Yeah, exactly. Or God, I could go all day and come up with weird stuff that I've ran into. Kangkor, which is about alcoholism. And I still don't know if that book is good or bad or not.
Well,
I have
at least it leaves you thinking.
But yeah, no.
So.
Yeah, and definitely it's memorable. You see Batman melt. Anyway.
Oh.
But no, I think I think the independent industry is great. I enjoy this, and we get to meet cool people like you. We all are tight niched, and we all want to help each other succeed and grow. So it's nice.
Yeah. And you know what? I think that's a really sappy but nice note to segue into wrapping up on it. It's nice to be able to, everybody just wants to help the other, and there's, there's really no competition or anything. It's just a matter of, hey, you got some weird shit, so do I. All right, cool. So is there anything last second that you want to say about Blu Lullaby that we might have missed? Any last plug you forgot to do?
No, I think we're good. The only thing that I wanted to say is, thank you, Lauren, for having me on and choosing me as your interview guest. It was a huge pleasure and honor. And everybody just check out Blu Lullaby. Hopefully you will enjoy it as much as she did. And if you don't like it, tell me. Like, if you think it's stupid, or you think I can do better, tell me. I'm always up for those types of statements too. Especially the twist ending. On that a couple of times.
Yeah, I would actually be really interested to hear people's thoughts on the ending, because regardless whether you think it's great or not, that's the thing. I think it does lend itself to a lot of discussion. So guys, bother Chad. Come bother me on Twitter. I'm at friendly MBHDBI. If you have a problem with this story and you're like, how dare you say it's phenomenal, you can bother me too. Like, yes. I'm an open book. But thank you, Chad, for coming on. I really appreciate you spending all this time. Thank you guys for watching. This has been Chad Perkins and me, Lauren, with the Comic Book Yeti.
Thank you for joining us today for this episode of the Cryptid Creator Corner. We also have a podcast of the same name that you can download wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for watching.
If you enjoyed this episode of the Cryptid Creator Corner, maybe you would enjoy our sister podcast, Into the Comics Cave. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.